Throughout my music career, I've actually had to learn all of these drumming mistakes on stage in real time, so I'm hoping to save you that pain. When the internet is kind of made famous, and it's overplaying. There's nothing wrong with playing a lot of notes. There's nothing wrong with playing all the notes, but it needs to come at the right time and in the right situation. We have to work on our situational awareness. Overplaying is really just playing too much stuff all the time and not tastefully. Again, playing busy parts is not wrong. Playing lots of notes is not wrong. It needs to be at the right time and sound musical though. Remember, the end goal is to elevate the music, not yourself. This next one is a close cousin to overplaying, and it's ignoring the song. You're not paying attention to the vocals and giving them space. Overall, just ignoring what's happening in the song and the individual parts within the song.
I'm ignoring you because you make me sad.
The next one is dragging behind the music. When I first started playing professionally at the age of 15 or 16, I had a mentor and he was a piano player. He would always tell me, just watch my hands for the beat. I was a young player and still developing, didn't really have a great internal clock. I can still remember to this day him leaned over the keyboard, banging it with his left hand and yelling over the music, "Don't drag!" Whether we were in an orchestra pit or we were on stage, he always let me know when I was dragging behind the music. Now, this can also be used as a tool to give the music a very big and fat sound, a la John Bonham. He's well known for sitting on the back side of the pocket. When the band has discussed this and you're all on board, this becomes a tool. But when not done intentionally, it can sound like the band is trying to pull you through a puddle of mud. We want to work on playing what we want to play, when we want to play it, how we want to play it. This one is called rushing. Man, did I used to do this one all the time. This is where we are playing unintentionally and really not consistently ahead of the beat. This oftentimes causes the song to speed up. Now, there are some fantastic players who do something similar to this, but it's intentionally, and that is more playing on top of the beat. A good example of that would be Stuart Copeland of the Police. Playing on top of the beat really gave his drumming a different type of energy, but it was intentional and consistent throughout his playing. The music was built around what he was doing and his energy. We always want to think about what this sounds like to the listener, and to the listener, when you are rushing and playing ahead of the band, it sounds uncomfortable.
Now, all right, I know that sounds bad.
This next one is called chasing the beat or chasing the music. This was a big one for me. All right, another embarrassing story. When I was 19, this was my first full-time gig. I was playing on Bourbon Street at John Wayner's famous store. My drum teacher at the time, Jeff Mills, played opposite me in the night band. And each band had 7 to 9 people in it. And every night someone was turning around saying, "It's too fast, it's too slow." So what we did was Jeff and I started using a click. No one else in the band could hear it, only the drummer. Now what this looks like is, if this is the beat, sometimes you're a little too far ahead and then we overcorrect and oh no, now we're behind, and now we're on the beat, but now we're ahead again. Oh no, we're behind, but and you're constantly chasing around the beat but never settling into a consistent groove. This was supposed to keep the time consistent, keep the tempos consistent when we counted things off night after night. I had never played to a click live, so unbeknownst to the band, what was happening was I would count the song off, and for about 2 measures we would be at that tempo. Then I would start drifting And then I would start trying to drift back. And then I spent the whole song trying to chase the beat. And for the band, this made it feel very uncomfortable. When I was doing this live, the band would blame it on the click. Turn that click off. It feels horrible when we play to that click. But it wasn't the click's fault. It was my fault. I didn't know how to sit in the pocket and keep it there. The next one is the cymbal to loud guy. This is one of the most common ones I see, especially in a studio setting. The drummer is just bashing the mess out of the cymbals. What happens is that takes our overheads out of the equation for the engineer, whether it be live or in a studio setting, because we're overriding everything else. They can't get a good drum sound from that. All they're getting is cymbals. Does this mean that we never play our cymbals loud? Absolutely not. It means that we need to be aware of how loud the cymbals are versus the drums. Sometimes we need to play the hi-hat softer. Sometimes we may need to play the hi-hat a little bit harder than we're playing the crashes. Sometimes we need to back off the ride cymbal. Remember, we want to play what we want to play, when we want to play it, how we want to play it. Steve Gould is a fantastic drummer and a friend of mine, and he said when he was coming up, one of his teachers drilled into him that you never play the cymbals louder than 80% of their actual capable volume. This allows for the rest of the drum set to come up and be heard over the cymbals. This next one, you've heard me talk about it before. Work on your transitions. What are transitions in songs? Transitions are when we go from one section of music to another section of the music. So a verse to a chorus to a bridge, a chorus to a breakdown. Sometimes that involves going from one drum beat to another drum beat. Sometimes it involves going from one style to another style. Sometimes it involves a drum fill. These are all what I call transitional moments. So what happens is in our practice time, we work on beat 1, we work on beat 2, but we never work on gluing them together. So when we get in the music, we can play beat 1, we can play beat 2, but when we transition in between them, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beats to settle into the new groove. Unfortunately, I had to learn this in one of the most embarrassing moments of my entire professional career. Again, back to that 3-year stint where I was playing on Bourbon Street, it was a huge learning time for me. I learned so much so quickly just from having to be on stage every night. The horn players came up to me after I'd been on the gig a couple weeks and they said, "Hey, can you play a samba?" I'm like, no problem, I can play a samba. Okay, cool. Whenever we play the song by Carlos Santana, Smooth, on the solo section, we have this horn line, so we go into a samba. I'm gonna look back at you when it's time to do that. I got this, I'm gonna nail it. So we're cooking, we're coming out of that chorus, we're about to go into the solos. I'm like, here it comes, here it comes. The trumpet player looks back at me, I do a drum fill, I land into the samba, and man, I'm telling you, I was killing it. Unfortunately, I was actually killing the song. All of a sudden, the horn players were looking around at me. The guitar player was over my ride cymbal yelling at me. And I'm going, what is going on? These guys have screwed this song up. Finally, the guitar player kicks his amp and launches back into the chorus. We get back on track and I go, I don't know what happened. The song literally fell apart. When we went on a break, Bobby O, the sax player, had gone outside on Bourbon Street and was watching things go by smoking a cigarette. And I came out and he said, that was pretty bad. And I said, yeah, what happened there? He took another drag of his cigarette. You turned the beat around. And I was like, oh no, I dropped a beat. And when I dropped a beat and played a measure of 3/4 instead of a measure of 4/4, it put me coming in incorrectly. So instead of the samba going goom, ska-goom, it was back, goo-goo, back, goo-goo, back, goo-goo. No one knew where we were. This is what that would sound like. Now with no music going, it sounds like nothing happened, but if you count that, I dropped a beat. You have to work on your transitions. In your practice time, if you're practicing a groove and you're practicing another groove, you have to practice those grooves together, going in and out of them. Don't just think you're gonna be able to nail it on the gig. There's gonna be a million other things that you're paying attention to in the song, and you're gonna screw up the transitions. just like I did. The next one is playing at one volume. This could be too loud or this could be too soft, but all the time you're playing at one volume and it never changes. You see, whenever I start talking like that, it's like, what's going on here? We don't talk like that. We don't need to play like that. We need to work on mixing our own sound. So we need to think, okay, what volume are we playing at on the verse? And then what volume does my hi-hat need to be at? What volume does my snare drum need to be at? We need to learn to internally mix our own sound so that we are aware of the overall volume of the piece, and we're also aware of the individual volume of the individual elements of the drum kit that we're playing. This is called articulation, and I talk about it all of the time with my students in my online drum school. It's one of what I call the Big Seven, which are 7 big picture principles that we can apply to any exercise. Technique, timing, groove, articulation, dynamics, melody, and flow. Those are the Big Seven. When I was 16 and 17, because of the group of musicians that I'd fallen into and because they liked me for whatever reason, I started to get some opportunities that I shouldn't have been getting at that age. And so I was playing with the Mississippi Symphony Orchestra. I got to work with a wonderful conductor, and he really helped to mentor me, and he really put the screws on me when it came to dynamics. Because when you have flutes, if I'm sitting in the middle of the orchestra and I'm overplaying, playing too loud, and you have flutes and violins, you can't hear them. Always. This was always what was happening. He was all loud, and he would have me play softer than I needed to just so he knew I was under control. But the number of times in a rehearsal he would stop and say, you're playing too loud. I cannot hear this. I cannot hear this. It was countless. It really drove home the point. He was trying to mix the orchestra and I was out of control. This next one I've talked to a lot of my students about, especially when they're transitioning from an intermediate to more of an advanced level as a player. That is playing with uncertainty. It's very hard to explain what this sounds like, but it sounds timid when you play. It sounds like you're not sure. It sounds like everything you play has a question mark on it. Maybe you don't know the music very well. Maybe you're uncertain about the players. Maybe you're not certain you can pull off this part. Maybe you're nervous. All of this translates to the sound and the energy of the song. And it gives the song a very uncertain feel, a very timid feel. When I go back and listen to old recordings of myself, I can hear the timidity in my playing. This was something I just had to deal with. I learned a whole set of music. I needed to get on a bus and go play an hour-and-a-half show without any rehearsals. The thing I kept telling myself was, you cannot play timid. When you count a song in, you're into the song. Play with authority.
Sure. Look at me. Sure. I'm the captain now.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and check out the other videos in this series, drum fill mistakes as well as top mistakes that beginners make.